Okay, so I thought this week we'd talk a little bit about Hanukkah topic. Hanukkah to everybody, and there's a really a big question whenever it comes to Hanukkah. And it's a question that has I think it's bothered me for many years. I think it bothered others as well. Is there's a big contradiction? Okay, the Talmud in Shabbos, Shabbos asks, "What is Hanukkah?" Okay, so I'm just gonna go to that screen just a minute to see what that says. It says, "My Hanukkah, what is Hanukkah?" And it goes on to explain the story. Now, when it explains the story, it goes straight ahead to the story how the Greeks came into the temple. And are we still here? Okay, they came into the Beis HaMikdash. It says they made all the oil impure, right? They timu kol hashmanim, and when they went, they searched. They only found one flask of oil, and a miracle happened, and that flask of oil lasted for 8 days. Okay, that's the story that we know very well. But there's a whole prelude to that story that seems to be missing when the Talmud discusses it, and that's of course the war. The war was a tremendously miraculous salvation. The Jewish people were in tremendous trouble before the war. They were in a dangerous place before the war, and they had this war where they were, heavily outnumbered, heavily outmanned. The Greek army was the most powerful army in the world at the time. The Maccabee soldiers. I mean, we say it in our prayers. It was Rabban biad ma'atim, Giborim biad chalashim. It was many people in the hands of just a few, strong people in the hands of weak. We had no chance at winning that war. And that is completely missing from the discussion in the Talmud and Shabbos. Completely missing. The miracle of Hanukkah is what took place after. Yes, there were Greeks, and after that, we took over. We only found one flask of oil. That's where the story starts in the Talmud in Masechta Shabbos. Now, when we look in a prayer that we actually said tonight for the first time, we'll say it all 8 days. We say Al Anisim. We say it in every Shmon Esrei. We also say it in our Birkat Hamazon, in our benching, and we say there Bimei Matisyo Ben Yochanan, the prayer that I'm sure we're familiar with. It talks about the story of Hanukkah as well. And if we look at the story here, it's a completely different focus. It's just completely it's a 360-degree turn from the Gemara and Shabbos. And here's what it says. It tells us the story. What happened in those days? Is that there was the Greek kingdom came up against the Jewish people with intent to cause havoc. Okay, what was the havoc it wanted to cause? Lashkicham Torasecha, to make the Jewish people forget the Torah. Lavir mechukei rtzonecha, move them away from keeping the mitzvos. And you, with your tremendous mercy, you made this amazing miracle. And we mentioned how you fought their war for them, and you put these powerful people in the hands of weak people. Giborim biad chalashim, Rabban biad matim, but the whole things we mentioned, Risham biad tzadikim, evil people in the hands of righteous people. Okay, and that was the amazing story. Now, what happened at the end? V'achar came at the end. Bo b'nechel ad bir beisecha, your children came into your house, into the Beis HaMikdash, and at the end, v'edliku neiros, and they lit candles. That's the end of the story, and that's v'kavu shmonas yemei Chanukah, and from there came the story of Hanukkah. It totally misses the end of the story. We know the story is longer. Yes, this was a tremendous, miraculous part of the story, but there's also the part that they only found one flask of oil and it lasted for 8 days. None of that is mentioned in Bimei Matisyo, in the prayer that we say all 8 days of Hanukkah. So I ask you, what is the story of Hanukkah based? What is the mitzvah or the yontiv or the holiday of Hanukkah? What is it based on? There's two parts to the story. And in Bimei Matisyo, we focus on one part, the fact that we were in tremendous danger and we won this war that we were completely, underestimated. We were not supposed to win that war and we won it. That's the miracle. And it doesn't even mention the candles, the whole story with the menorah and with the flask of oil. None of that is mentioned. And then when you get to the Talmud and Shabbos, it says, what's Hanukkah? It skips the whole war part. It says, yeah, when we overpowered them, we came into the temple, we only found one flask. That's the whole part of Hanukkah. So which one is it? It seems to contradict each other. Okay, so that's the question. Many have asked this question before. I believe Reb Chaim Friedlander speaks about it in his work, Sifsei Chaim. Others do as well. It's a question that's well known, and it's a question that really should bother any of us. How is that Bimei Matisyo we missed the whole flask story, and in the Talmud and Shabbos we missed the whole war part? Isn't it both? Maybe it's both. Which one is it? One or the other? Do we have to choose one? I mean, honestly, if I had to choose one between the two, what was a more important miracle? What is a more something we need to celebrate much more, it would be a no-brainer that it's the miracle of the war. I mean, if you think about it, what was going on at the time, just a little bit of historical perspective, is that the Greek Empire was the most powerful empire in the world at the time. They had a quest for world domination. They were going and taking over countries, and it wasn't only a military quest for domination, it was also a cultural quest. They had a concept of Greek culture, which was incredibly powerful. It was, these were ideas that actually eventually crept into what we have today as, our democracy. Democracy is a Greek word. It came back from those days, their system of courts, and there's a lot of things that we still have today from the Greeks and the way we live our lives. The Greeks were considered a major milestone in the history of mankind. Okay, so Greek culture was incredibly important to the world. It was something that was taking the world by storm. And the same way the Greek army was taking over the world, Greek culture was taking over the world. And when they took over a country or a civilization militarily, they also took it over culturally. Okay, they were completely exposed to Greek culture and inundated with Greek culture, and they became pretty much Greek residents. And here's where, when they came into Israel and they took over Israel at the time, and they had dominion in the land of Israel, here's where the challenge began, because they also began to introduce Greek culture to the Jews who were living there at the time. And in fact, it says, historically, we know that there were many Jews who kind of bought into it. They were known as Messiavnim. Messiavnim means they were Hellenized. They're the word Hellenization, if you're familiar with it. They were basically Hellenized, and they went along with it, and they started adapting to the Greek culture. We use the word reforming their own beliefs, and they bought into the Greek system. And we were in big danger at the time from a religious point of view, from a spiritual point of view. We mentioned last week how Esav comes in two forms, right? When Yaakov prays, he's about to me, Esav, Hatzileni miyad achi miyad Esav. Save me from my brother, from Esav. What's the double expression? Sometimes Esav comes as our brother, and sometimes he comes as Esav. When he comes as Esav, he's the wicked Esav. He comes with his sword, with his gun. He wants to shoot. He wants to kill. That's the Esav we know about. But sometimes he comes as our brother, as our friend, and he wants to befriend us. He wants to bring us close. The danger in Chanukah, we don't find, Antiochus, the wicked Antiochus, we don't find him saying, all Jews must be killed. That was the Purim story. The Chanukah story, that wasn't the danger. The danger wasn't that he wanted to kill. There was plenty of murder, plenty of bloodshed going on. That was the way the Greeks enforced their laws. They were incredibly brutal and barbaric in how they did it, but that wasn't their intent. Their intent was not to kill out the Jewish people. Their intent, however, was to introduce their Hellenization, their Greek culture, their Greek philosophy, and to weed out whatever it was that made us different, that made us unique. And that's something they did want. There was a fight against our spirituality. And in fact, the Messiavnim, those who did Hellenize, who went along with the program, they felt accepted in Greek culture. They felt, this is fine, this can work, we can do this, right? So the danger at the time was tremendous, right? Us as a Jewish people have gone through so much throughout our history, and the amazing miracles that we're still here, right? But we've gone through a lot of situations that we were in significant danger, not just physically being wiped out, but spiritually being wiped out. And this was one of those instances where we were in serious danger of being annihilated from a spiritual point of view. Because had we gone along with it, there wouldn't be a Jewish people. Okay, if you think about the miracle of the Jewish people, it's something amazing. Here's the people that were, first of all, we've been here from the beginning. There's no other nationality that can claim they've been here from the beginning, right? You remember anyone from the Greek Empire, from the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire? It's all gone. We were kicked out of our land, spread among the other countries, and we continue to remain steadfast to our beliefs. When we come back together, we discover that there's not that much difference between us. We're still the same people. We still uphold the same practices. And I always say, when the Shulchan Aruch was printed, you had the Ramah, the Ashkenazic great rabbi, you had the Beis Yosef, the Sephardic great rabbi. They got together. Yes, they disagreed on a few points, but they agreed a lot more than they disagreed. And the fact is, we kept strong to our belief regardless of what we were put through. And it's an amazing concept that we didn't give in. We're a little bit stubborn in that sense, and we kind of held on to it. And this was one of those times where there was some serious danger of us disappearing, if you will, from the map. And that's where the Hashmonaim went to war. They didn't go to war because they felt their lives were in danger. They went to war because they felt their religion was in danger. So if we get back to the question, what is the most important miracle of Hanukkah? Was it the war, or was it the candles? The candles, the menorah, the flask of oil? It's obviously the war. The war saved us as a people. We wouldn't be here today. There wouldn't be us having this discussion right now, if that war didn't happen, if the Maccabees didn't go to work against the most powerful army in the world, and this tremendous miracle took place where they overpowered the most powerful army, it made no sense. Logically, it made no sense. No one could have predicted that. They were the underdog, by a long shot in this war. And they won the war. So there's no question that in terms of importance, this was the most important part of it. Now, in terms of the menorah, just to make it clear, for the years preceding the miracle of Hanukkah, already the Jews did not have access to the Beis HaMikdash. They were not doing anything in the temple, right? They needed 8 days to get pure oil. They didn't have any pure, all the oil was tameh. All the oil was impure, right? So they didn't have any oil. They needed 8 days. So if they would have gone another 8 days, they went already years without bringing any sacrifices in the Beis HaMikdash. What would happen if they went another 8 days? What is the big issue, that we need a miracle, so no, you can bring it now and you don't have to wait 8 days and you can, the oil's going to last. Like, what was the big issue to have this tremendous miracle? Why do we even need this miracle? Others point out a concept in halacha called tuma hutra b'tzibur, and this means that even though in the temple everyone has to be tahor, has to be pure from a spiritual perspective, laws of tuma and tahara, pure and impure, they have to be pure. However, if the entire community is impure, you're allowed to bring offerings just like you would even in a status of impure. There are those that argue that today we can go ahead and bring a Karban Pesach, and even though we're not pure, we don't have the red heifer and all that, but we don't have to be because the majority of the community is impure. The majority of the people are impure. We're allowed to actually do offerings without being purified. Okay, so technically we could have brought the oil, even if it was impure, we could have used it. We didn't even need this miracle. This miracle was, in a way, a complete extra. Okay, a bit extra. It was a bonus. It was nice. It was beautiful. It's a tremendous miracle. But in terms of importance, there's no question that the miracle of the world, far surpassed the importance of the miracle of the flask of oil. So what is the discussion even here? I would think obviously the miracle of the war is the most important part, and the other miracle, which albeit important, albeit beautiful, is just not on the same level whatsoever. How come the Gemara in Shabbos tells us that the entire Hanukkah was established and was instituted? Why? Because of the miracle of the flask of oil. So I'm going to give you an answer, and its answer is an answer that is said by Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, the Rosh Yeshiva of the Mir Yeshiva, and he said something amazing, and I think this idea is something we have to draw into our minds. And he said it with a mashal, with a metaphor. He said, imagine you're looking into a room and you see a woman taking care of a baby, okay, an infant in a bassinet of some sort. And the woman is, changing the baby, cleaning the baby, helping the baby get dressed afterward, doing all the things that mothers or women know how to do for babies. And you're looking at the woman and you're trying to assess, is this woman the mother of the child? Or is this woman simply a nanny, a housekeeper, a helper, a nurse? Could be anyone. You have no idea who this woman is. Is this the mother or not? He says there's one simple way to find out. When the woman finishes cleaning up the child, does she bend over and give the baby a kiss on the forehead or not? If the woman just finishes her job and then goes on to take the vacuum and start vacuuming or does whatever she's doing, so she's very likely a nanny of some sort, maybe, some kind of helper in the house, whatever she is, she's a helper. But if she goes and gives the baby a kiss, that's an indication, okay, this is the mother. The mother not only does the things she has to do, she also gives the sense of love. Okay, the Chaim Shmulevitz says this concept by Kriyas Yamsuf, by the splitting of the sea. It's said in the Midrashim talk about this, how when the sea was split and we were traveling, we were walking, and the dry land inside the sea, right? And the Egyptians were chasing after us, and this was our getaway, and we were walking through the sea. It says in the Midrash that fruits and different kinds of things were coming out of the walls of the sea, I guess. The sea of this, there was fruits there was food there, there was candy. I think they tell the kids there was candy there, right? Lollipops were coming out, chocolate. I don't know what they say anymore, but there was food. There was all kinds of treats coming out of the walls. There was water to drink. There was all kinds of things. And Chaim Shmulevitz kind of asked the question, like, why is this miracle important? Is this an important miracle? Is this necessary? Right now our life's in danger. We're getting, attacked from behind. We were attacked from all four sides actually at the time. We had nowhere to go, and then we had this escape route, and finally we're going. Like, is the treats, is the candy necessary right now? Is that an important miracle that we need, at this point? And the answer, he says the same thing. This was the kiss. To save us. He says an amazing. He says, to save us, God's going to save us. We're not worried about that. We know God's going to save us. We know Hashem says, I will never leave you, says God. You're going to be here forever. You're going to be here physically. You're going to be here spiritually. You're going to be here forever. God promised this. We had forefathers. We told them, he said, this is going to be my nation. Okay. So to speak, in a way, we can't say these words, but God in a way has to save us. We're not worried about that. We know we're going to be saved. The question is he giving us a kiss as well? Is he showing us that he loves us? Or is he simply saying, listen, I kind of have to do this. I promised your forefathers, I'm going to take care of you. So I'm saving you. So the story of Hanukkah, of course, God saved us. He's not going to let us go. He's going to let us turn into Greeks, and that's going to be the end of us. We're going to disappear. Of course not. We're going to stick around. We're here for the long haul. Okay, we're going to be here. We're always going to be here. But that miracle of the oil, that was the extra. That was the kiss. That was to show us, hey, I love you guys, and I'm here because I love you, not because I have to, not because I promised somebody else, because I love you. I'm giving you an extra little miracle here. And hence, this basically puts together the concept of the story of Hanukkah. It's a salvation in our most dangerous time, and it's a reminder that we will always be here. We're always going to we'll always be in challenges. We've had challenges since, and we will continue to have challenges. We're always going to come through. We will always be saved. The concept, however, comes with that kiss together to show us he's not doing this because he has to. He loves us. He continues to look out for our best interests, and hopefully we should see salvations to continue coming with those kisses. Shabbos, Hanukkah, Sameach. All the best.
Gosh, thank you.